Level up your LA Kings experience with the new Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access. Enjoy great seats to the game along with premier dining inside the Lexus Club with all-you-can-eat food and non-alcoholic beverages. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings item and parking with your purchase. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn rewards on each purchase from the only ticket company that rewards you for buying. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings.
You're listening to an LA Kings podcast. For more episodes of this and every other Kings program, visit lakings.com/podcast.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back, Kings fans. I am Jesse Cohen. This is All the Kings Men. Today, we're bringing you an interview with head coach Jim Hiller, conducted by Zach Dooley. Once I finish this intro here, you won't be hearing from me again until Kings Talk on Saturday night or All the Kings Men on Monday if you don't listen to Kings Talk. And if you don't listen to Kings Talk, why not? It's just a post-game episode of All the Kings Men, but we take phone calls. Anyway, generally speaking, I don't feel super comfortable turning an entire episode of the show over to someone else, but I've got a lot of health-related issues on my calendar at the moment, and this is the head coach of your Los Angeles Kings sitting down for an extended one-on-one with Zach Dooley. I felt like this was as good an excuse as any for an exemption to my rule. Some quick thoughts on some quick news tidbits that dropped Wednesday. Jared Woolley signed his entry-level contract today. It caught me off guard. Generally speaking, I wouldn't expect a 6th-round pick to sign an ELC this early into his prospect status. Woolley was selected in the 6th round of the 2024 NHL entry draft by the Kings. He just finished his first full season in the OHL. And another eye-browsing detail, his season isn't even over yet. Woolley plays for the London Knights, who are the best team in the OHL, and they're the top seed in the OHL playoffs. I would expect they'd wait for a playoff run to finish, but Woolley and the Knights are going up against Carter George and the Owen Sound Attack in the first round, so we'll see how that goes. In other news, Jeff Malott was recalled from the Ontario Reign today. Malott, and it is pronounced Malott, has 23 goals, 51 points in 61 games this season with Ontario. He's listed at 6'4", 204 pounds. He's racked up 80 penalty minutes this season. We'll see what role he plays on the team and how many games he's up for, but there you have it. That's the news from today. Here's Zach Dooley and Jim Hiller, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Jim, we've got 20 games or so left in this season. Just to start things off, your bigger picture assessment of kind of where this team is at as you hit this critical stretch run.
Well, I would say looking back, 60 in, we're happy with where we're at. We're, have a playoff position currently. We're not satisfied. We think there's areas of our game that we could have played better and still need to improve. January was a tough month for us. I think really the only tough month. We bounced back in February, and so that brings us to March where, it's really good hockey. The stretch run, you're playing, jockeying for playoff position. Teams are really pushing to make the playoffs, and I think we've risen up here, lately with the last 3 games.
It took maybe 60 games to this point, but you've moved pieces around quite a bit. You've tried different forwards, different defensive pairs. Do you feel like at this point, maybe you've found what could be the ideal combination of 12 forwards and 6 defensemen with these lines and pairs?
Yeah, we hope so. I think up front especially, there's been a lot of movement. The addition of Kuzmenko, which I think complements Kopi and Kempe very well. He's got to adjust to the team, but he's the type of player I think that we were missing. So I think that kind of rounds us out up front. Hopefully we don't have to make adjustments. We only would if we feel like we need to spark the team in some way if we don't play well, but we don't foresee that. The defensemen, of course, have been all year. Have been without Drew. Has been kind of a lot of experimentation. We know that Edmondson and Anderson and Gavrikov have played and played a lot. So they'll continue to. We just don't know exactly what the pairs will look like.
So the switch came after Kuzmenko came in after the deadline. We'll get to that in a minute. But I don't think it's an exaggeration to say maybe the team isn't where it is without all the 11-7 success that you guys had, earlier in the year. Like, do you feel that has a place going forward, or is it maybe, I don't know, you got what you needed out of it and then you like where you're at right now?
I'm always comfortable with that. I like 11 forwards. I know 7D is probably not optimal for Smitty, who's running the D back there, to get everybody on and in a rhythm Sometimes it's hard to do that with even 6. So, but the 11, I know our forwards like it. They give them a little bit more ice time. I don't know. We're just going to play it by ear, but we're not opposed to going 12 and 6. I think it gives us the flexibility that our players have played both and are comfortable with both. We'll just see where the rest of the season takes us. But it's always a thought in our mind. It's always part of the discussion.
Other teams have done that, right? You've seen Edmonton do it against you recently. You've seen Tampa Bay do it back in the day. Like, do you think a team can do 11-7 over an extended stretch or even into the playoffs? Or is it maybe just a little bit unknown because we haven't seen it all that often?
I think you can. I really think it depends on your personnel. Just how you're structured, what your centermen look like. I think some experience, what the experience of your team looks like. There's a bunch of different variables. I wouldn't say one would fit one team. It would be a one size fits all. I think it really is team dependent. It's really based on some of the different types of players you have on your roster.
Going back to the deadline, there were a lot of rumors externally, surrounding this team. Wondering how you felt that the team kind of got through that time when there's obviously guys in that room who might see their name pop up on social media. It can be a hard time. How did you feel that the guys kind of handled that time of the year?
Well, I mean, this is the thing about the league. We can talk about travel. You can talk about back-to-backs, the schedule. It's the same for everyone, and it's in that time of the year sucks for everyone because nobody wants to leave their team. I don't care who you are. You don't want to leave. You've got, your teammates or your buddies. Nobody wants to go away. You've put time and effort into trying to achieve something as a team, so nobody wants to leave. So it's rattling because even if you don't feel your name is in one of these things that gets popped up, we've seen it before where out of the blue certain players do get traded. So I think everybody's glad that we're just past that. Now you can just settle back in. This is your team the rest of the way, and now let's get out there together and fight and get something done that we're proud of.
We talked a lot about conversations that you maybe had with management going into the deadline, but when you get to that actual day, are you still involved at that level, or do you just say, hey, I have a practice to coach and I'm a coach at this point, or are you still kind of in those conversations on deadline day?
Yeah, not heavily. I mean, I think the way we approached it, this is my first trade deadline, second trade deadline as the head coach. If there's something that's, I'm sure our management is talking a lot of different things, and most things obviously don't get very close to fruition. If there's something that's getting close, Blakey will let me know. This is what's going on. Nothing for sure. But there wasn't that much. There wasn't that much where I was brought in, where, hey, you know what, there were a few different things going on. It was getting close, and ultimately we picked up Kuzi.
That's the guy that you had, right? So other rumors at this point don't really matter. You have, Andrei Kuzmenko, and you didn't subtract a player, from your group, which maybe is, equally important. But now that he's here, what did you know about him coming in? And now that he's played a few games, what have you seen maybe compared to your expectations coming in? Yeah,
well, he certainly caught everybody, the whole league's eye. His first year in Vancouver was really good on the power play, was a dangerous offensive player. Came in as an older, first-year player and had a tremendous season. So that was the one that got everybody's attention. And then for whatever reasons, you come back your next year and you're not quite as good. And then you see him get moved along, and then twice this year. But you always remember the skill and the ability he had that first year. So you hope that you can recapture that. That's in there. There's no question. It didn't pan out as well for him going forward. So we see that, and we saw it as the type of player that we really needed to add to our lineup. And so we're really happy to have him. I think he's off to a good start. We've seen the glimpses that he's shown, and I think he'll just get better for us.
The LA Kings aren't a team that scores a ton of goals. So when you see a player who scored 39 a couple of years ago, that's obviously what jumps out. But there seems to be a lot more to the player than just a goal scorer, the playmaking, the stuff in the O-zone. Are you kind of seeing that stuff in his game as well, beyond what just like the stat sheet might tell you?
Yeah, I would say currently, if we have something that we think that we'd ask him to do more of, and that's shoot the puck. So that's, look at the 39 goals, and right now I think we've told him on multiple occasions, you got to shoot. He's overpassing. And sometimes that's a product of joining a new team and just trying to make everybody happy and distribute the puck. So we want the goal scoring. We want, when he gets an opportunity to shoot more often. And we know he can pass too, but he's got to become a little bit more, in your terms, selfish. And we've talked about this before. But right now, I think he's one of the players that would fit that bill. So he's got an all-round skill set, but shooting the puck is one of his strengths as well.
Look, we can't say that you guys haven't worked on the power play. We've seen it pretty much every day, all year. And I don't want to put undue expectations on one player, but does it almost feel like maybe there's a bit of a new lease on life in that area with a guy like Kuzmenko who plays a specific role that you guys haven't really had this year with the right shot forward?
Right. Yeah, I think so. And I think I'm, just being on the ice with some of the guys on that unit, they've seen him in practice at least be able to make plays, go quick. So I think there's a lot of comfort and excitement with those guys. Now he's still got to go out and get the job done. But I think it's reinvigorated them just a little bit because they've been worn down as the season's gone on and the power play has lacked some success, just like we all have. The players themselves, can carry a heavy burden. So I think that's lifted it a little bit. I think everybody's pretty optimistic about what's going to happen here in the last quarter of the season.
If you look at his first 72 hours, he gets in at night, he sleeps, he plays. He goes to Vegas, he sleeps, he plays. He gets a day off where I'm sure he has a million things going through his head that he needs to do. Then he plays again. What are maybe some of the challenges a guy like that faces coming here for the first time, and what do you do or does the team do just to try and make him feel as comfortable as he can in what I'm sure is an absolute whirlwind?
Yeah, right. Well, you just want to make sure that whatever help he needs, whatever support he needs outside of coming to the rink and practicing and all those kinds of things, that he's getting. And so, I talked to him about it, and I talked to Gabby about it. Gabby was on it already. They're looking for an apartment, telling which restaurants to go to. So there's a level of comfort there with Gabby as a Russian player also, speaking the language. And Mikuzi's English is okay, but he's still, native Russian language. I think he'd prefer to speak Russian. But he was really happy. He was really effusive in his praise of the organization about how much help he's gotten from everybody since the trade was made, and not just players, but staff and management too. So he'll get settled in, get out into an apartment. I think that will help him a little bit. He said sleeping isn't the best at the hotel. There's doors banging. So, which tells me this is a guy who's very serious about performing well. So, hopefully he just gets better.
The other side of this deadline, obviously you got a player that you wanted, but nobody who was here left. And is there something to be said for the consistency and the continuity of keeping a group together that you have worked with now for 60 games, you've seen improve, and then just adding to that rather than, multiple pieces coming in and out?
Well, I think that's a really important point. I think the team has performed well. I think they've performed well. We've certainly had some individuals have good seasons, but I think this team is more of a collective than maybe in the last couple of years that I've been here, a few years. Collectively, they've really played well together. They've complemented each other. There's certainly a team spirit there that's helped carry us to this point. So all those things considered, you don't want to take anybody out of that's got you this far. So to be able to add and keep the people here that have really pushed us into a playoff spot this time of the year, I think was important.
If you look at the collective, going all the way back to training camp, you laid out certain things you wanted to maybe tweak with this group. You didn't want to lose the defensive identity, which you obviously haven't. It's almost gotten better. Wanted to try and work more offense in. Maybe sometimes you have, sometimes you haven't. How have you seen the collective maybe actually put those changes into practice? And have you had to make adjustments along the way as you've learned what the identity of this specific group is to the changes you did want to make?
I would think so. I mean, we still would like to score more. I think that's an area of the game that we've looked at long and hard. I think we've, freed ourselves up in the neutral zone and on the forecheck a little bit more. The rush chances were pretty good. It's still that the elusive O-zone and creating as much time as we can, and not just time in, but dangerous, more high danger shots, looking into the slot area. That's a challenge. But I think there's been progress made. I think we understand our best structure for our team. So you can say, hey, maybe we should do this. Well, maybe we're not configured to do that as much. So I think over time we've seen that this is the type of offense that we have to create. We've focused on that. I think the players understand it. So we hope that we just continue to grind that out. You get a player that Kuzmenko, who's one of his strengths is in the O-zone. Hopefully that's going to translate to just more offense in general.
We talked about this earlier. 2025 has been a year of stretches, right? January obviously started off really well, it went down. February, you guys caught fire kind of around the break, had the 5-game streak. Now you're kind of riding it back up a little bit. As you look back to that January stretch with some distance, you're further removed from it, are there things that you've kind of pinpointed as like, this is why what happened, or do you have the same thoughts that you did when you were living it, in the moment?
Yeah, I do. I think one thing you have to be really careful. If you go look around the league, and there probably are a couple teams. I don't know them. I think Dallas had done pretty well, hadn't lost 3 in a row. There are times when you're playing other teams that are really good also, and you lose some games. Just over 82 games, it's unavoidable. And there's nights where you lose 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row, and nobody likes it, and everybody wants to change it as quick as you can. But I think sometimes by searching for answers too deeply, you can create the hole bigger than it currently is. So I think you're always worried about your belief of your team, your work ethic of your team, and your structure. And if you can get those back on track, typically the wins will start to come. Maybe not as quick as you want. But when you start losing those things, and are we doing the wrong things? Do players still believe? That's when you can get down the wrong path. So understanding that it's a long season, there are times that it's just not going to go your way. Puck's not going to go in some nights. I think, as we talk about this, I think to our game against Vegas at home, which a lot of people would look at and say it was a great game. We scored, I think, 4 goals in the third period. So we scored 4 goals on 6 chances. It happens to be one of those nights where we shoot the puck, it finds a way, it's in the back of the net. So you can say, wow, were you guys good? Or you can say, oh, on that night we managed to pick up some random luck that maybe in January hit a post or hit a skate in front of the net. So I think it's important to remain balanced and evaluate the team not just on the outcome, but on the processes that get you to the outcome.
Is there something to be said, and I know like in the moment, the outcome probably didn't feel great, but is there something to be said for a team showing that it can overcome a stretch like that and maintain the belief factor and the other things that you just mentioned there?
Yeah, I mean, that gets you, I'll tell you, I'll bring you back to when I talked to the team, was really the first time that I felt that we had hit any adversity. The other point in the season that we talked about was we lost in the San Jose game, where I think they had 5 goals on 7 or 8 chances in the third period. So we responded to that. But it wasn't a big point of adversity, I didn't feel. That was the point of adversity. So we're into January, and this is our first. Probably when Drew went out was a point of adversity. I think I should mention that. That was adversity. But as a team in the regular season, that was our first point of adversity. Teams have adversity, and the good teams face the adversity. They get through it. You come through stronger. So we hope that's the case for our team, and I believe that, and I think the character of the team really is in the end what gets you through those things. It's just, you can get through it quicker with stronger character, and I think, we've done that.
All this stuff we've talked about, you've gotten through or overcome to get to this point. Now there's 20 games left in the season, and I know that Smitty keeps you updated on the standings for sure, but are we at that point when maybe you're looking a little bit more regularly, knowing that wins and losses are really moving, up and down in the standings?
I am. Yes, I am now, but what I'm trying not to do is attach too much emotion to that night in and night out. So we're paying attention, understanding we can't control what's going on over there, so just as an observer. But yeah, they impact the standings, and we are getting close enough now where, it's a little more interesting to see how some of these other teams are performing. But it's still not to the point where, and it will be unavoidable, to where you're now emotionally attached and oh boy, and you're watching it on TV. We're not there yet.
Is there any semblance of, you look at where the standings sit today, it's extremely familiar. The Oilers are P2, the Kings are P3. We've seen that, a number of times. Does that give any emotion, whether it's excitement or frustration or whatever it might be, like here we go again potentially, or are we still too far from that?
Yeah, well, no, I think we're too far from that. I think here we go potentially, you can say that every summer for the last 4 summers, right? I mean, that's where the teams have performed and ended up for certain reasons. So, but I still think there's chance for movement. Hopefully us up and let's just see where it takes us. But so it's nothing set in stone. But as you see, it's a good chance. And I think if we said in the summer, we're in. Well, we could be playing Edmonton. Let's bring it. You know what I mean? You're certainly not trying to avoid a matchup. You're just hoping that you're part of the tournament once it gets started.
At this point, home ice advantage is a real possibility looking at where you're at. And this team is so comfortable at home this year. I mean, how important is it, or maybe motivating is it, to know that that's potentially what you're chasing down the stretch? Is that something that could be different, is maybe game 1 could be in LA for the first time since the Kings have been back in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's logical. We've played well at home. I think anybody would want to start at home. I can tell you this, it's not something that's going to be our focus. I think our focus will just be continuing to play well, try to get ready that when we hit the playoffs after game 82, that we feel like, okay, this is our sweet spot. This is as good as we can be prepared for the playoffs. And whether that's home or on the road, we'll accept. I think the more important part of the job is to make sure that we're feeling that we're really on top of our game once that first game hits.
Blakey used this word at your intro press conference, getting uncomfortable. And I think we've seen a little bit of what that means. This is a team that's been described as hard to play against. But are there elements of that style of play that you truly can't evaluate until you get to game 83? Like, have we made those strides in those areas and you can't just tell in the regular season?
No, I think we have. And how I would judge that is just based on some of the feedback you hear, whether directly or indirectly, from other teams' players, other teams' coaches, other teams' management. And when they're talking about you as a team that's difficult to play against, for me, you've done something right. You've made it difficult. You're, for whatever evaluation they've had, players, coaches, or management, you're a hard team to play against. And I think you can be a hard team in a lot of different ways. You can say Edmonton's a hard team to play against because when they get on the power play, they're very dangerous. We'd like to think that right now with our makeup of our team, we're a hard team to play against because we have 20 players committed to playing both sides of the puck as hard as we can, as consistently as we can, which is harder to do than doing it once in a while, is the consistency. So I think for those reasons, again, not internal, but just based on some of the external feedback, that you're happy with the way the guys have played. You're proud of them.
So if you look at where this team is at, I mean, the next step feels clear after what's happened the last few years. It's getting over that round 1 hump, and it's probably the $1 million question. There's not one answer to it, but are there things about this group that maybe makes you feel confident that it is better equipped to get over that hump than maybe what's happened over the last couple of years?
Well, I hope so. I think, this year, maybe more so, and you would know better, but maybe more so, well, since my time here, I think some of the younger players have taken on maybe bigger roles. And, that's what you need. You need the younger players to not only play and help, but to start really pushing up and really having impactful contributions to the game. And I think, I don't need to name them, but we have plenty of them because they've all done it in their own ways. I think that's an important part of this year's team, is that younger wave from underneath is ready to get in there and contribute maybe more than they have in the past.